Okay, today's talk is about a 1902 book by Richard Maurice Buck called Cosmic Consciousness. Buck was a Canadian psychiatrist. In those days, they weren't called psychiatrists, but if you were interested in dealing people with severe mental problems, in the lunatic asylum, that's what they called it in those days, you were known as an alienist. I don't know why, but that's what they were called. The alienist was a modern day psychiatrist. And Buck was very interested in kind of a form of human evolution. He looked at animal consciousness, and then he looked and compared it to human consciousness to see, to compare and contrast what was similar, what was different. And he did find there were some differences. And he also looked into human literature. And he found that ancient stories from, for example, ancient Greece, they didn't discern the difference between certain colors like green and blue, at least in the literature. So Buck kind of read between the lines and figured that in ancient days, perhaps humans didn't see colors as well as we do today. And he thought perhaps there was an evolution in our ability to see. There was a book about Leonardo da Vinci and how to think like Leonardo da Vinci by an author named Michael Gelb, much more recent than the Buck book. This Gelb book might have been, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And Gelb recommended that you really work hard to develop your senses, especially your sense of sight. I think in Italian, he was using the word sfumato, S-F-A-M-A-T-O. It might have been something else. He was using Italian words, and I don't speak Italian at all, but this is the best of my memory. But he did say that, if you really work with your attention, you can improve your ability to perceive with your senses, and he was really talking about sight especially. So is it true that in ancient days that people didn't really tell the difference between green and blue the way we do today? I don't know. That was just Buck's conclusion. Buck went on and he said, humans have got a different, higher level of consciousness than animals. And then he went through and he was looking throughout human history for examples of superhumans. Humans who had an even higher form of consciousness than the average Joe. And so he went way back to pretty much the people that he was looking at would be considered either very prominent in science or very prominent in spirituality. And he said that these people had gained a new faculty of consciousness, not from birth. He said it happened later in life that they gained this extra faculty. And he went through and researched quite a number of people throughout history, and he kind of came down a general list, and he said, a lot of these people gained their additional consciousness, say between 40 and 52. And he called this kind of consciousness that was added to them cosmic consciousness. And that was the name of his book, Cosmic Consciousness. And you probably could still find a paperback copy of Cosmic Consciousness in some of the used book dealers on the internet. I bought it many years ago in a used bookstore, and I really enjoyed the book. And it was really surprising because it was a 1902 book. Buck kind of let the cat out of the bag that he figured that he also had developed this cosmic consciousness faculty. And I can't remember all of the people that he mentioned, but I think it was Muhammad, Jesus Christ, Benedict Spinoza, Walt Whitman, quite a few others. And in the book, he gives pretty good bios for that he could put together of these historical figures. And he talks about when this new form of consciousness came to them. I don't have the book anymore. A long time ago, when I moved from one city to another, I had to severely downsize, basically down to the size of a couple of pack sacks. So my whole book collection had to go. So I don't have that book anymore. Anyway, it was very interesting, and those are the highlights. So that's the book review. If you're looking for a good book to add to your library, I would definitely recommend that. And the Whitman book, Leaves of Grass, he wrote over a number of years. To tell you the truth, I breezed through it. I didn't find it terribly inspiring, but apparently some people do. And it was funny that this Benedict Spinoza came up again for me last week when I was rewatching. If there's one series of TV shows that I go back to time and again, it's the original Star Trek, and you hear me talk about it from time to time. And in one episode, it was about the third episode of the original series. It comes out that Captain James T. Kirk was a huge bookworm when he was at Starfleet Academy. And one of the books that he was known to have read was this Benedict Spinoza, who, according to Richard Maurice Buck, had this cosmic consciousness. And you just got to honk on that. I don't know if it means anything to you. To me, sometimes these honks are just serendipity. Anyway, I have not read Spinoza. I've heard the name, and it turns out that Kirk read him and recommended the book to some other people. So I'm going to see if I can find any free Spinoza. What I do is I go to Amazon, see if they got a Kindle version of the book, and download the sample. Because a sample is pretty much all I need. I just don't have time to read whole books anymore, and if I can get a little sample for free, that usually does me just fine, and it doesn't cost me. Like even the paperback copies of books these days are $30. That's way too expensive. Now, I suppose I could go down to the public library and see if they have one, but unfortunately, the library closed half an hour ago, and I did go down there, and I arrived at 5 to 8. It was closing at 8, but they had already locked the doors. So I was kind of annoyed. I just wanted to duck in, grab one book. I would have gone directly there, got the book, and I would have been out in 5 minutes. But they, even though the sign said closes at 8, by the time I got there at 5 to 8, they'd already locked the door. So this is a sign. Human beings are lazy. If your library is open till 8 o'clock and you put the sign on that says it's supposed to be open till 8 o'clock, you better damn well keep it open to 8 o'clock, or else I'm going to chew you out for your laziness. Now, granted, maybe they got to put things away or whatever, but, it's not open till 8 o'clock if you lock the doors before 8 o'clock. Am I being picky? I'm just pointing out human laziness. It's, in other words, even though, the library's there till 8 o'clock, and I'm sure they're paid to be there a little bit longer, because you've got to shoo some people out. Just like when you go to the bar closes at 2, or the serving stops at 2, but they leave the bar open until like 2:30 to clear people out. If you're going to close the library before 8 o'clock, then say the library is closing at 7:30, and then, give them half an hour's grace. But I'm sure that if you put the library closed at 7:30, they'll close it at 7:15. This was also relevant in the film Waking Life, where one of the talking heads who was talking about human evolution and what should happen said a lot of the negative traits of domination, for example, dominating others, in his view, would be removed, so that higher states of consciousness, perhaps this cosmic consciousness, definitely more enjoyment of beauty, letting people be instead of ordering them around according to your monkey mind. But this particular talking head, he said, oh God, what was it? Hold on a second. I'm going to see if I can find the clip. Okay, and on that video, I was spinning through so you could see some other videos that are being recommended to me on my on my YouTube feed. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about? So, how do you develop cosmic consciousness? In Richard Maurice Buck's book, he didn't really explain how it went about. He just said that certain people seem to have got it. I mean, can you go take a course on getting cosmic consciousness? Can you improve your diet, add vitamins and, spirulina and kombucha? Do you have to go and get initiated by a guru or some kind of a master? Do you have to wait for the full moon to be in Jupiter and Venus conjunction with Mars or something? Is it something astrological? Do you have to be in a Faraday cage on the equator at the Tropic of Cancer on New Year's Day? Do you have to be in the presence of Tibetan monks chanting? I think the clue was what Richard Maurice Buck said. These people were either leaders in science or in spirituality. So, I mean, if you're going to be into spirituality, maybe what you should do is read some of the original texts written by some of the people that were mentioned in Buck's book for inspiration. That is a good way of getting some idea of what was going through their minds. So, I guess you're going to have to get a copy of Buck's book, or at one time when I was using, I don't know if it was Google or some other search engine, I was able to find a PDF copy of Richard Maurice Buck's book, or maybe I got it off of a torrent site or something. I don't know. I've been cheap for a long time because they don't pay me enough to make up for the high cost of books. Anyways, I saw you could get a copy of Richard Maurice Buck's book on Amazon for about $10. If you can't afford that, then I gave you some names. You could go look them up. Um, all right, I'm going to say forget about all that. I'm going to come back to you're so bored with me because I'm constantly telling you if you really want to reach higher consciousness, it doesn't come in a book. Although you might be inspired by a book. Higher consciousness is it's already set up in your physicality. So if you want to be physical Al, all you have to do is disconnect from the world. In other words, go into a quiet room or go sit under a tree in a quiet park and, cross your legs, sit down, then cross your legs. Sit with a fairly straight back, but don't be like so upright that it's uncomfortable. And close your eyes. Now you're meditating. It's that easy, and do it for quite a long time when you're first starting. And if you can't get very far with it when you're first starting, it's normal. It's normal to get overwhelmed by the feeling like this is not working. I can hear all my thoughts. It's like my attention's being drawn in 10 different directions. It's normal when you're first meditating for this to happen. So, if you had enough, get up, go for a walk, find another tree, sit down, and try it again. It takes initially a really lot of attempts at meditation before you actually get into a sitting meditation where you feel like you're getting anywhere. When you're finally figuring out, oh, I've got inner silence. And you go, oh, it's wonderful. I love it. I love it. I love it. But practice makes perfect. And if you don't practice meditation, it's not going to work for you. Then, other ways you can get into meditative states are if you're doing things you enjoy. So if you love windsurfing and you're windsurfing and you're focused on that, that's a form of meditation. If you like to play an instrumental music or sing, in the midst of doing that, it's a form of meditation. If you like to do projects, you've got like a handyman shop and you like to tinker with things, that's a form of meditation. Basically, it's focused attention. So do you really need to do a sitting meditation? At some point, it's a good idea. Because when you're focused on outer things, like I'm focused on this outer phone, I'm not focused on that initial thing that I want you to get, that bit about if you're sitting quietly and you don't have anything outer, you can close your eyes and you can listen to the wind. And if there is thoughts and, voices, your inner voice is going on and on about this, or you're getting like your body's going like this, you can get this idea that you are the spot of awareness that is aware of all these things that are going on. And that is a key thing. And you should come back to that quite often, that idea that all this stuff is going on around me, and sometimes it's overwhelming because it feels like you're getting sensory overload. But it is necessary for you to get to the point where you get to the feeling that what you are is the thing that is aware of all the goings on in your sensory field. Anything else? That's about it. Thank you for watching. Tune in later. I'm sure I'll have more videos for you.
There are two kinds of sufferers in this world: those who suffer from a lack of life and those who suffer from an overabundance of life. I've always found myself in the second category. When you come to think of it, almost all human behavior and activity is not essentially any different from animal behavior. The most advanced technologies and craftsmanship bring us, at best, up to the super chimpanzee level. Actually, the gap between, say, Plato or Nietzsche and the average human is greater than the gap between that chimpanzee and the average human. The realm of the real spirit, the true artist, the saint, the philosopher, is rarely achieved. Why so few? Why is world history and evolution not stories of progress, but rather this endless and futile addition of zeros? No greater values have developed. Hell, the Greeks 3,000 years ago were just as advanced as we are. So what are these barriers that keep people from reaching anywhere near their real potential? The answer to that can be found in another question, and that's this: which is the most universal human characteristic? Fear or laziness?